Hey guys, how you doing? Fragrance Professor, back at it again with you. In today's video, I want to share with you three fragrances that I think are just very gentlemanly, very debonair, uh, generally suited for maybe more mature guys, at least maybe in attitude. You know, you don't have to be necessarily over a certain age to wear these and to enjoy these, but maybe just be a little bit more mature in demeanor and attitude and so forth. But all of these, I think, are very affordable. All, I believe, are, under, depending on the size bottle and such as that, generally under $80 to $85. Some quite a bit more. Some are just, in the 50s, one or two that I'm going to share with you. So let's delve into it. The first one that I want to share with you today is a scent from Cartier. You know, Cartier traditionally was known for their jewelry, and they got into fragrances some years ago now. This is one of their most well-known, and there have been several flankers to emanate from this, but this is the original Pascha de Cartier. This is the EDT, and this was launched, I believe, somewhere in the early 90s. From what I understand, it was actually a clubbing fragrance for a while back during those early days, believe it or not. But I like the bottle. And it's a very sort of simplistic style, but very elegant, I think. Now there are, like I said, several flankers. There's a parfum version, a EDP, and some other flankers, I think maybe noir and such as that. But this is just the original. Now this is a very smooth fragrance. There, some citrus notes, lavender, some woods. There's nothing really outstanding per se about the breakdown, but I think the way that they come together and the way that this is blended is really nice. This can be had somewhere in the probably $60 to $70 range. Again, depending on the size bottle. Now, this is a 100 ml, 3.4 ounce. So, again, on discounters, which is where I almost always buy my fragrances, I very rarely buy them at retail. This is not going to break the bank. Again, this is an older fragrance, but it doesn't necessarily smell dated. If I were going to pick one from the Cartier line, from the Pascha line, I think I would probably go with this one, just because it probably is maybe better suited to most people's palates, and just, probably a little more affordable, I would guess, than the Parfum, which may get into the 90s or low $100 range. So this is the first one that I chose for you. It's a very nice, smooth, well-blended fragrance, very office friendly, I think, as well. But I think certainly more suited for people maybe over, the age of 35, 40 or so. But I've been really enjoying that one. So that's Pascha de Cartier. The next one that I want to share with you is a fragrance from Guerlain, and this is Vetiver. Now, Vetiver from Guerlain has been around. As I was doing a little research about this and just studying a little bit of the history, it seems like Vetiver was launched originally in the 1960s and then maybe relaunched, from what I can tell, in the early 2000s. But it's your typical Guerlain bottle. It's very hefty. This is actually a 5 ounce. It's a 150 ml, 5 ounce bottle. And this probably will last me, the rest of my life. Now, it says Vetiver, but Vetiver is actually just one note of many. So there are some citrus notes. There's even a little bit of tobacco, but certainly Vetiver does take a starring role in this. It does have a sort of a grassy sort of feel to it. It's not overwhelming at all. I like it. Nice atomizer, by the way. I think is one that you could wear when you're in maybe a sort of a certain state of mind. Now today is April 1st as I record this. So, spring is starting to burst through, and, the weather is warming up a little bit in a lot of places. So springtime, I think, would be a great time of year to wear something like this. It's light, it's airy, it's grassy. It just sort of puts me in a very pleasant state of mind. So it's one that I have been wearing actually, getting out of the shower at night, or maybe just lounging a little bit, just something, when I don't want to wear, some of my heavier fragrances, I'll reach for this. And you can see I've only had this for a couple of months, but you can see I've put a pretty good dent in that. You can take a look, and you don't have to worry about necessarily going too heavy on the sprays with this, because it's not a beast projector. In fact, none of the three that I'm sharing with you today are beast mode in any way. They're just very moderate in projection and sillage and so forth. So you don't really have to worry about going too heavy on the trigger. I really doubt that you would ever offend anyone, even in a more closed environment, like an office type setting. I don't think you could go wrong. And, speaking of office fragrances, if you're a guy over the age of 35 or 40 and, you work in an office, I think this would be a good choice because, it does have that history of Guerlain. Like I said, it was launched originally in the early 1960s, if I recall, but again, relaunched in 2000. So it does have that history to it. It does, have that vintage flair, but it does not smell dated. So I like that a lot about this. That's Vetiver from Guerlain. Last but not least, this is one that I'd been wanting to pick up for a long time. I'd had it in, my purchase list, and when I was online, I had it in my list of fragrances to buy. Never quite pulled the trigger on it for whatever reason. I always, would kind of kick it out at the last minute, and I said, you know what, I really do need to pick this up. I remember seeing this. This is Pi. If you're wondering, I'd get too far into it and not mention the name. This is Pi, P-I, like the mathematical number pi, from Givenchy. Okay, so this was released in the 1990s, and it's just a wonderful modern classic. It's known as a vanilla fragrance, although again, there are other notes, obviously, that complement it and go along with it. There are a few citrus and woodsy notes, but by and large, it is known as a vanilla-based fragrance. And it's really nice. It's relaxing. I'm going to give it a squirt or two. It smells really good. I think I was on the verge of mentioning this, or maybe I did mention this a second ago, but I remember seeing this, in stores. I remember seeing this as, a teenager, and always was attracted to the bottle more than anything. And I'll show you this. So it's a very sort of geometric bottle, a nice triangle shape. I'm not sure exactly what that is on the bottle itself. I can't quite make that out. I'm not really sure what that is, but nevertheless, it's just a very well done, well crafted bottle. This is the cap, so you can see there's nothing else that goes on top. That is the cap. And so when this first came in, and I've only had this for about 6 weeks, but I was really sort of struggling with, okay, well, is there a cap? What's going on here? But this is it. That is it. So a bit unusual, but I've really been enjoying this. And again, vanilla is a type of note that is known to have those, properties of relaxation, and it's just a very pleasing note. Again, it's really hard to offend anybody with this fragrance. It does sit a little bit close to the skin, at least on me. So it's not going to project massively. And, it's not overly sweet. So, I think it really has struck a happy medium. I believe the nose behind this, if I'm not mistaken, is Alberto Morillas, which is one of the premier noses in the industry, really, of all time, for that matter. So really a very prominent perfumer behind this fragrance. So this I picked up, it's been a while, so I don't remember exactly, but I believe it was in the low $50 range. So nothing that is really going to break the bank. But, if you're looking for one from the early 90s, maybe that doesn't get much hype anymore, really, I don't see this mentioned in any of the videos that I watch. And, I follow a number of other fragrance channels on YouTube, and I really rarely see this mentioned. So if you're looking for something that, is kind of under the radar, but could be considered sort of a modern classic, and, that's not an exaggeration, really. I really do believe that. give this one a look. I think you might enjoy that. So again, this is Pi from Givenchy. So, you know, the house has pedigree to it. I mean, it's a Givenchy fragrance, so I think you'll enjoy it. So again, Pi from Givenchy. Okay, well, I think we're going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, just 3 fragrances that anyone can rock, really, but I think they really are suited well to a more mature gentleman, you know, if not in age, then certainly in attitude and demeanor that aren't really going to break the bank. So those are my 3 that I wanted to share with you. We'll go ahead and call it good there. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're not yet subscribed, then I would ask you kindly to subscribe. If you'd like to get these sorts of videos in your inbox a couple times a week, I'm trying to do some recording and bring some things to the table for you. So if you enjoy this kind of content, then I'd encourage you to do that. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your day.